All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into the life of Barack Obama, from community organizer all the way to commander-in-chief. We're going beyond those typical headlines, though. We're trying to unearth some of the less-known, fascinating details from his journey to becoming the 44th president.
Yeah, I think one thing that often gets overlooked is how much Obama's kind of unusual upbringing really shaped his perspective. Everyone knows he was born in Hawaii, sure, but it's his childhood in Indonesia that adds a whole other dimension to his story.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a young Barack navigating the bustling streets of Jakarta, taking in all the sights and sounds, the traditions of this completely different culture.
Right, that's not your typical presidential origin story for sure.
Not at all.
It's amazing to think about how those years living abroad must have influenced his worldview.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about experiencing a new culture. He saw firsthand the realities of poverty and inequality, realities that, a lot of American children wouldn't really encounter. And this experience, it likely played a role in shaping his commitment to social justice later in life. And, on top of all that, let's not forget the challenges he faced personally. His parents' divorce, being raised primarily by his grandparents, and all while adapting to a new environment. It's pretty remarkable. Talk about resilience.
Yeah, you can really see how those experiences would foster a deep understanding of the human experience. Something that would definitely serve him well later on. So let's fast forward a bit. He excels at Columbia, then conquers Harvard Law. It's an impressive trajectory. But then he takes this seemingly unusual path, community organizing in Chicago.
Yeah.
What was it about that work that drew him in? Do you think that was a turning point for him?
Oh, it was absolutely pivotal. I mean, he could have easily pursued a lucrative law career, right? But he chose to work directly with communities struggling with poverty, unemployment, lack of opportunity. This wasn't about theory or abstract ideas for him. It was about getting his hands dirty, tackling real-world problems at the ground level. And I think that's where his passion for social justice really ignited, fueled by the stories and struggles of the people he worked with every single day.
Yeah, it's like he chose to dive headfirst into understanding the very issues he'd later tackle on a national stage. And speaking of connecting with people on a deeper level, that brings us to his breakout moment. That electrifying speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone remembers that speech.
Of course, the energy in that room was palpable.
Oh, yeah.
And keep in mind, he wasn't even the nominee.
Right.
But he captivated the nation with this message of unity, his audacity of hope. And he wasn't just offering policy points. He was tapping into this deep yearning for something more, a belief in the possibility of a brighter future. It's really no coincidence that those themes resonated so powerfully throughout his political career.
It's amazing how a single speech can launch a movement and even foreshadow a future presidency. Now on to something that directly impacted millions of Americans. Obamacare, as it's often called. I mean, everyone knows the name. But let's get real. What were the real challenges in getting that landmark legislation passed?
Well, healthcare reform is a minefield, even under the best of circumstances. You're dealing with incredibly powerful interest groups, ones that benefit from the status quo. And then there's this deeply divided political landscape, a system that's just riddled with complexity.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to overhaul this massive, intricate machine while everyone's arguing about which wrench to use.
Okay, that's a pretty vivid image. So what were some of the specific hurdles that Obama faced in this healthcare battle?
I think one major challenge was just the sheer amount of misinformation circulating about the bill. You remember all the talk about death panels, government takeovers?
Oh, yeah.
That was a deliberate tactic, right, to scare people and undermine support for the Affordable Care Act. And Obama had to combat those outright falsehoods while, simultaneously negotiating with lawmakers, trying to build consensus, having to make these tough compromises. It was a real political high-wire act.
Wow. Navigating that political landscape while trying to reform one of those complex systems in the country.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And yet he managed to get it done.
He did. And it really speaks volumes about his strategic thinking, his ability to build coalitions, and his unwavering commitment to expanding healthcare access. It wasn't perfect. No major legislation ever is. But it represented a significant step towards a more equitable healthcare system in the United States.
It's truly remarkable to witness that journey. From community organizer advocating for change on the ground to the Oval Office enacting policies that impact millions. It's a powerful testament to his vision and his tenacity.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us to what might be the most interesting chapter of all, his post-presidency. Leaving the White House didn't mean retreating from public life. In fact, it allowed him to pursue a new vision for change, a vision that's embodied in the Obama Foundation. But that's a story for our next segment.
So we've talked about his Indonesian childhood, his community organizing, that groundbreaking presidency. But what about the Obama Foundation? It seems like it's more than just your typical post-presidential library situation.
Oh, it's so much more than that. The
Yeah.
Obama Foundation is all about empowering the next generation of leaders, and not just in the U.S., but globally. It's about tackling those massive, seemingly intractable challenges head on.
Yeah.
Climate change, economic inequality, strengthening democratic institutions around the world.
Wow, that's ambitious. And you know what? It makes sense, right? I mean, these are issues that don't stop at any border. We need global solutions. And who better to inspire that kind of action than someone who's, walked the walk on the world stage?
Exactly. And they're not just talking about change, they're giving young leaders the tools, the resources, the networks they need to actually make it happen. They're investing in the future, in the power of fresh perspectives and bold ideas. One of their programs that really stands out is the Obama Foundation Leaders Program. They bring together emerging leaders from all over the world, people working in all different fields, for this year-long intensive leadership development program. Imagine the kind of cross-cultural collaboration and innovation that comes out of that.
I can only imagine. It's like a global think tank of passionate change makers, all connected by this shared vision of a better future. And that focus on global impact, it seems like a natural extension of his work as president, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, think about the Paris Agreement, a landmark achievement in the fight against climate change. Obama was instrumental in bringing that together, forging consensus on a global scale. And let's not forget his efforts to normalize relations with Cuba after decades of tension.
Right. Yeah.
These were audacious moves, driven by a belief in diplomacy and the power of collaboration.
It's fascinating how his post-presidency work reflects those core values, those big picture ideals, but on a more grassroots level. It's not about top-down policies anymore. It's about empowering individuals to make a difference from the ground up.
And it's not just about international issues either. The foundation is deeply engaged in work here in the U.S., focusing on communities that are often overlooked and underserved. They've launched initiatives to support young men of color, revitalize struggling neighborhoods, promote civic engagement at the local level. It's about bridging divides, building connections, and creating opportunities where they're needed most.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the political drama, the headlines, the policies. But at the heart of it all, Obama's story is one of profound human connection. Whether it's connecting with communities on the south side of Chicago or negotiating peace agreements on the world stage, it seems like that ability to connect with people on a deeper level has been this driving force throughout his journey.
It's been a constant thread, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
it's not just about charisma, it's about genuine empathy, that ability to understand different perspectives, to see the world through the eyes of others. That's what allows you to build bridges, to find common ground, to inspire change.
And that's a powerful message for all of us, right? It's a reminder that real change, lasting change, starts with human connection, with understanding, with empathy.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that leadership doesn't stop when you leave office. It evolves. It takes on new forms. It finds new ways to create a ripple effect of positive change.
Speaking of leadership, one thing that always struck me about Obama was his incredible eloquence. His speeches were more than just words. They were powerful calls to action, stories that resonated on a deeply personal level.
He had this remarkable ability to connect history and hope, to weave together these personal anecdotes and universal truths in a way that moved people, inspired them to believe in something bigger than themselves.
He was a master storyteller, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that transcends politics, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The ability to communicate effectively, to connect with your audience, to tell a compelling story. Those are essential skills for anyone who wants to make a difference in the world, whether you're leading a nation or, leading a community garden.
It's about finding that common thread, that shared human experience that binds us all together.
And that brings us to an interesting question. How will history remember Barack Obama? It's still early, of course. But what do you think his lasting legacy will be?
That's a great question, and one we'll tackle in our next segment as we wrap up this deep dive into the extraordinary journey of Barack Obama. Okay, so we've traveled from Indonesia to the White House, and we've explored community organizing, healthcare battles, and the global impact of the Obama Foundation. But now, as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels like the biggest question is still out there. How will history remember Barack Obama?
Well, it's a question historians will be grappling with for decades, I'm sure. But I think even now we can see some key themes emerging.
Okay, so what stands out to you? What do you think will be the most significant pieces of his legacy?
I think first and foremost, there's the undeniable historical significance of being the first Black president of the United States.
Of course.
That alone is a monumental achievement. It's a testament to the progress we've made as a nation, but it also, acknowledges the work that still lies ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. His presidency shattered a barrier that stood for centuries and showed the world a different face of American leadership. It was a powerful symbol of hope and progress for so many.
But his legacy goes way beyond symbolism. He'll be remembered for his commitment to social justice, his tireless efforts to expand access to health care, his leadership on climate change on a global stage. I think about it. He inherited an economy in free fall, 2 wars, and a deeply divided nation. And yet, despite all of that, in the face of such immense challenges, he managed to achieve significant progress on multiple fronts.
Yeah, it's remarkable when you lay it all out like that. And it's not just about the policies themselves,
Yeah.
but it's about the way he approached leadership.
Yeah.
His ability to stay calm under pressure, articulate a clear vision, inspire people with his words and his actions. Those are qualities that resonate far beyond any particular policy or political party.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's a reason why his speeches are still studied and quoted today. He really understood the power of storytelling, the ability to connect with people on an emotional level, to inspire hope even in the darkest of times.
As we've been talking, I keep coming back to that idea of hope. It seems like such a central theme throughout his journey, from that audacity of hope speech that really launched him onto the national stage to the work the Obama Foundation is doing today, empowering young people to create a better future. It's like hope is woven into the very fabric of his story.
It really is, isn't it? And it's not just a passive hope. It's this active, engaged hope, the kind that fuels action, that drives progress. It's about believing in the possibility of change, even when the odds seem stacked against you. And that's a message that resonates so deeply, not just in the U.S., but around the world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with? What's the most enduring lesson we can learn from Barack Obama's journey?
I think it's this. His story reminds us that leadership is not about power or position. It's about service. It's about using your voice, your talents, your influence to make a positive difference in the world, however you can. Whether you're, leading a nation or leading a community project, the essence of leadership is the same. It's about inspiring others, empowering them to believe in themselves and their ability to create change.
Beautifully said. And as we leave this conversation, I'm feeling incredibly inspired. It's a reminder that each of us has the power to make a difference, to contribute to building a better future, no matter how small our actions may seem.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe this deep dive has sparked an idea, or a new perspective, or a renewed sense of purpose for you, our listener. Maybe it's inspired you to, get involved in your community, volunteer your time, support a cause you believe in, or, even just have those difficult conversations with friends and family about the issues that matter most.
It's about taking that spark of hope and turning it into action, into real, meaningful change. So keep diving deep, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep believing in the power of hope and the possibility of a brighter future. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.